We thought the Nets maybe would trade CJ. Doesn't happen. Can you think of any other reasons why he wouldn't be traded?
Like, could we have landed Luka? Is that what you're asking me? No. I mean, we just don't have any pieces. Can I tell you why that doesn't work? This isn't a conspiracy.
You can tell me, but you're wrong.
Gets it off in time. And he's going, baby! Big time Nets win.
The only Net fans you know? The only Nets fans you know? Man. I mean, come on, man. Or are these guys?
Welcome back to the Only Net Fans You Know podcast. I'm Peter. Welcome to episode number 98. I have Gary joining me from Nothing But Nets live streams. Great trade deadline. A lot of moving pieces. Luka's going to LA. De'Aaron Fox is going to San Antonio. Jimmy Butler to Golden State. Nets don't do anything. Ben Simmons is bought out. Just a lot going on. We thought the Nets maybe would trade CJ. Doesn't happen. What's your first take about the whole trade deadline in general and the Nets being quiet?
Well, like two thoughts on that. First, like the Luka trade was obviously earth-shattering. That was the most unexpected trade I ever saw. I think we all went to Sam's tweet and was clicking on it to see if it was real or not. Did this trade actually happen? It did. Then CJ, I said this from the beginning of the season. If you're keeping CJ and you're keeping Doe, it's a half-ass tank. Now, they traded Doe when they could, and they kept CJ. And as we got closer and closer to the deadline, and it was obvious that Marks was holding steadfast to 2 first-rounders, that we weren't going to get that, and we were going to keep CJ. And by the Monday or Tuesday before the deadline, I knew that we weren't moving him. You know, on my podcast, my co-host was fairly confident that we could move him. We're staying here till the offseason at least. You know, I wanted him traded. Obviously, I thought there were some good trades out there that we got some draft capital on. But I think he's going to be moved in the offseason.
I think so, too. You took the perspective of kind of attacking Marks. I'm kind of on the edge of defending Marks in a way. If you see the market develop how it happened, we went from CJ being the belle of the ball to all of a sudden KD might be getting traded.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler gets traded. Luka gets traded.
Yeah.
Right? So it's that's happening. The Nets might have been focusing on a trade for CJ at some point, but after the Dorian Finney-Smith trade, after the Dennis Schroeder trade, it had to be the right deal at the right time, and it just didn't match up. And we have to keep in mind that the main goal is to get under the tax. I feel like that was the main motivation of CJ not getting traded. Can you think of any other reasons why he wouldn't be traded?
I think that he's keeping Cam as a salary filler, as a piece. I'll give you Cam and this plus these picks for a star. I think that he may have moved him for the right price. Like if he would have got a Mikal Bridges haul, okay. It's kind of like one of those things. I'm not interested in selling my house. I'll give you $10 million for your house. I'll sell my house, right? It's one of those things. It's like make me move kind of thing. And he didn't get that. I think he got fair offers, but they were fair market value, and he was looking for a haul. And like you said, when these other guys, Brandon Ingram, KD was on the market, Jimmy, when these guys became available, all of a sudden, you know, Cam Johnson, who was the prettiest girl in school, the cheerleader captain, who everyone wanted to take to the dance, now wasn't that anymore. And the market wasn't there for him anymore. And once that happened, Marks was like, I'm content on keeping him. So my inkling is that they're either going to try to trade for the star this offseason, or they're going to try to trade for it. Whether or not they can pull that off is a different story.
What deal in particular do you think would have made sense for CJ as far as, you know, we saw DeAndre Hunter going to Cleveland, and I thought it was a crazy package. Niang, LeVert, a couple swaps, a couple second rounders. Would you have done that deal? Is CJ let's face it, right? He's putting up great numbers. He's playing for a bad team. If he's playing for a playoff team, he doesn't put up those numbers. He doesn't get the amount of looks he's getting, right? Is his worth really these first rounders, or are we just, you know, holding on to like a dream? Is Sean Marks holding on to a dream?
Yeah, I think he's overvaluing him a bit, although I do think he has some value, right? I always say the most important skill you can have in today's NBA is shooting. Second is defensive versatility, but first is shooting. He's got that. He can do that. That's the one thing he can do. But like to your point, if he's on a playoff team, he's averaging 13 points a game. as a number 4 option. Like, I'm not degrading the guy. I'm not belittling the guy. That's what he is. He's been in the league 6 years now. This is year 6 for him. GM's already evaluated him, and him going from 13, 14 points a game to 19 isn't really changing the needle for him. They know what he is. And that's a rotational guy. You know, he's probably on the court in the final 4 minutes of a playoff game. So there's value there, but it ain't 2 first-rounders. And I think, you know, Mark's overvalued that.
My gut feeling was that, yes, they would trade him in the offseason. And I guess I still feel that way. But the more and more I think about it with all this cap space, they might keep CJ because they might see him as part of the next team. He's young enough. If you are going to get a star in 2 years, a guy like CJ might be very attractive to help space the floor, especially if it is like a Giannis that you're getting, right? I want them to tank so badly, but I really think they're trying to expedite this rebuild. I really do. And we don't know who could be available. Who knew that Luka was going to be available? Do you think the Nets could have beat what the Mavs got?
No. I mean, we just don't have any
What?
pieces. We could have gave them a ton of draft capital, but we don't have any pieces. Like, what are you going to give them that they're going to want? You know what I'm saying? Like, could we have landed Luka? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, I think you put CJ in there. You put a cap filler in there. You give them all the picks, and using those picks, you could have probably gotten somebody. First round picks are super valuable right now.
Can I tell you why that doesn't work? And this isn't a conspiracy.
You can tell me, but you're wrong. But go ahead.
This is all out in the open. It's not about basketball. When you see a trade that makes no basketball sense, there's more to it than basketball. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is all public knowledge. The Adelson family tried to get gambling legalized in 2021. It failed. The Texas Congress meets every other year. So 2023 was the next year. They bought the Dallas Mavericks. They bought 108 acres out in Irving, which is where the Cowboys used to play before the new stadium. They bought that land to build a hotel, casino, and a world-renowned arena. There's no gambling in Texas. Texas is the 9th largest economy of its own country. So by far, Texas is the largest country to not have any type of gambling. So they're going to have a monopoly on gambling. That's what they want. The only problem is it's completely unpopular with people in Texas, and they want nothing to do with it. So the Adelson family, who owns the Las Vegas Sands, hired the most expensive lobbyist in the world who got gambling legalized everywhere else to get gambling legalized in Texas in 2023. Didn't work. Then they tried again in 2025. They couldn't even get it on the ballot in 2025. When they couldn't get it on the ballot, you know what happened the next day? They traded Luka. They want to take the team. They want to keep him in Dallas. That's the plan. But if they can't get their casino, they're going to move him to Vegas. And the only way that they can get the NBA to approve it, because Dallas is the 5th largest TV market. Vegas is the 40th. So if they went to the NBA and said, we want to move the 5th largest television market to the 40th largest television market, the NBA would say there's no chance. Except if they have no attendance and no television ratings. How do you get no attendance and no television ratings? You trade your superstar and you start to lose. So their last stand is 2027. If they can't get their casino and gambling legalized in Texas in 2027, they're going to move the team to Las Vegas by 2030.
I think you could have made the same move. You could have made the same move with the Nets, and you would have had a bright future in Vegas. The only thing that I don't believe in that, it makes you okay. Your theory is talked about by a lot of people. It does make a lot of sense, and it may very well be true. I just think that you could have gotten a better deal, but I don't. I hate even saying this, but maybe you want to piss off the fans so they don't come to games. But I don't know. It's not very easy to move a sports franchise in baseball. I gotta admit, I don't know how this works in the NBA. In Major League Baseball, if you want to move your team to another state, the owners have to pay a lot of money. Like the Oakland Athletics, who are right now they're transitioning to go to Las Vegas, they got to pay a major fee, a major relocation fee. And I understand the whole gambling thing. Don't get me wrong. I just think it's a lot of moving parts. But you could be right. You could be right. My heart of hearts, I just don't feel it. I just don't feel it. And I do think they could have got a better offer. I think it was some scumbag shit that only the Lakers were able to kind of get on this. If you're down in the ratings national wise as a league, getting the Los Angeles Lakers, a 25-year-old Luka Doncic, sure does bring some excitement. I know I watched that game. Even though the Nets were playing that game, I was watching the Luka highlights.
This is why I think the Nets may end up with a top 3 pick, regardless of where they finish, as long as they finish in the lottery, because the NBA ratings aren't in great shape right now. Luka to the Lakers helps a lot, helps long term, right? He's 26 or whatever he is. He's going to be there for 10 years, most likely. If they can put Ace or Dylan Harper on the Nets and have the Nets and the Knicks good for a prolonged period of time, that's a ratings bonanza for the NBA. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying the NBA is rigged. I'm saying maybe the ball is bouncing the Nets' way and they get Ace or Cooper, even though if they finish in the 9th spot or the 10th spot. Just saying, just putting that out there.
And to put a pin on all this, next episode, I'm going to talk about this more because I have to ask someone if I could say this out loud. But someone told me, this is like a secondhand source, the reason why the Lakers paid so little for Luka. And if you do probably said too much, I might have to edit this out. But there's a reason why. Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you feel like they've kind of dumped the tank?
Yeah, I was never like you guys. A lot of you guys, not you, but
you guys,
net fans out there. Net fans out there. We're all about the tank. I looked at it like strategically. Okay, look, I'm not in favor of tanking ever, but in this particular situation, it might be the best move on the chessboard. The Nets are in a really bad spot. They have no talent at all. I guess in this particular situation, tanking might be your best bet, even though it's still a long shot at working. Now that they're winning games, the Nets have a path into the play-in, and I think they're going to get there. Like I said this a while ago, and then I looked like an idiot, that the Nets had a better chance of making the play-in than falling into the top 3. And then they went on that losing streak, right? And that looked ridiculous. But now it looks less ridiculous. They won 5 out of 6. And the teams ahead of them don't want to be in the playoffs. If Philly, who's a little bit ahead of the Nets right now, can fall into the bottom 6, they get to keep their pick. And Oklahoma City doesn't get it. So Philly's got a reason to tank. Chicago is tanking horribly. If the Nets pass those 2 teams, guess what? They're the 10th seed. And we haven't even gotten to Atlanta, who looks like they're done too. Like the Nets are playing to win. These other teams aren't playing to win. And when you're playing to win every night, like you've seen, even with inferior talent, you're going to get some wins.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this before. Brandon Ingram going to Toronto. I think the Nets by the time of recording, I think the Nets are 3 games up on Toronto. Do you see them passing us?
Toronto could be one that passes. That could be the saving grace, is that Toronto passes us. That definitely could happen because they got Ingram. RJ is healthy again, right? Like they've got some pieces where they can win. They're way more talented than us. They're more talented than Chicago. They're probably more talented than Atlanta right now without Jalen Johnson. So, yeah, there's enough games where hopefully they can pass us if you're rooting for that draft spot. If you're rooting for the play-in, now you have to pass Chicago, Philly, and then you got to keep Toronto off, which I think is going to be the toughest thing. Like, I think you're going to win more games than Chicago. I do. But does Toronto then pass you is the question.
Yeah, I'm hating all these wins. I'm going to be very blunt about it. I get frustrated when I go to check the score and they're beating Charlotte twice in a week span. I just feel like it's great. Let's get into the play-in, and then if we miraculously make it to the first round, we're going to get swept. Like, what's the point of this when you could get a player? And I'm not going to, obviously the players are playing for their next contracts. They're playing for themselves, obviously, as they're supposed to. They're supposed to make the games competitive. I didn't think D'Lo would be a big difference maker. It's obvious that I guess he is. How important do you think the Dorian Finney-Smith trade was to dismantling the tank?
Well, we got him. I said D'Lo's going to win you some random game against Washington on a random Tuesday. He's going to score 40, and everyone's going to go crazy. And everyone's going to bust out the D'Lo jerseys from 2018, 2019. But ultimately, he's not going to – he's a good tank piece. And you can see he's a pro out there. He's not even scoring the ball well, and he's shooting horrendously. That being said, he still impacts winning. He creates offense for others. And when he was out, you can see that not only did the Nets not have anyone that could create their own shot, they didn't have anyone who could create a shot for others. D'Lo could do both. And I know he's not hitting a shot right now, but eventually he's going to. And when he does, you're also going to have Cam Thomas back. You're going to have Cam Johnson sitting behind the three-point line. All of a sudden, this team that's not very good, and they're not very good, gets better. And you have half the Eastern Conference tanking. And D'Lo is impacting winning more than I thought he would, even when he's not shooting the ball well.
I have a very funny feeling that if D'Lo can't join a playoff team, I would not be shocked to see him re-signing here. I know that puts a smile on your face. You like that.
D'Lo and Cam Thomas is the greatest backcourt God ever created, and I stand on that. That's at least my favorite. I would love to have D'Lo back next year if either as a starting point. I don't know who we're going to draft. If we draft the point guard, then he's going to have to come up. He's going to have to come off the bench. But I don't think he has a ton of options. Right? He's already established himself as a non-playoff player. He's a terrible playoff player. As the lead ball handler, he was terrible with the Nets. As a secondary option, he was terrible with Minnesota, and as a true role player, he was terrible with the Lakers. So in all three roles in the playoffs, he's proven not to be any good. So if you're a legitimate playoff team, if you're the Cavs or you're the Rockets, why would you look at him? You wouldn't. So to me, I agree. I think there's a decent chance that he resigns with the Nets because we love him here.
I don't know how Marks feels about him, obviously, but I definitely feel like there is something there that I don't know if it's because we're fans, we're not in the locker room, but I just get a funny feeling. It looks like he's really enjoying himself back in Brooklyn. I don't know what the market is. There's not a lot of cap space out there. If you're D'Lo, right, do you come back to Brooklyn as a starter or, getting the majority of minutes at point guard or shooting guard, even if you do have the Nets drafting a point guard? Or do you want to go to a playoff team and come off the bench?
It depends. Does he want to win or does he want to have a good season where he can average 18-8 and try to get a big contract moving forward, right? Because if he goes to a playoff team, they're going to be salary strung, you would think, and he's not going to get a lot of money. So is he playing for one more big contract? If he is, the Nets kind of makes sense because it's his ball. He can run the offense. He can put up numbers. If he can shoot and score efficiently, he might be able to land himself one more big contract. If he wants to go win and compete next year and he wants to be on a good team, then obviously that's not the Nets. So it's really what does D'Lo want to do? Does he want one more shot at a big contract? Because he's not getting that this offseason. I think we can agree on that. He's not getting a 3-year, $80 million contract this offseason. That's not going to happen. But if he can put a good season together next year on a 1-year deal, he might be able to get one more big contract.
Absolutely. You know what I'm really confused about? What's up with the other buyout players? Like, Bogi's not going to be re-signing here. Why is he still on the roster? Why is Melton still on the roster? I just don't see the benefit of having those two guys on the roster. And, you have Killian Hayes playing in Long Island. I'm sure there's a couple other guys who you'd like to get a couple, at least a couple glances at. Can you make any sense of this?
Well, they have to agree to a buyout, right? Which means they would have to think that there's another team willing to pay them and sign them, right? And Bogi, when the Nets got him, it was like he's going to be back by December or January. And is there any timetable on him? Because to me, he's a guy that can still help a good team off the bench in a small role, right? Like he can score, he can create his own shot. To me, that's a guy that can help you. But he's old and injury prone, so I have to see him. If I'm going to take even a small risk on him, I have to see him. And the Nets don't want to put him out there because he's going to help them win, and they want to play other guys. And it's like, this is a weird situation.
I don't think he's even healthy, bro. I don't think he even could contribute. If they are hurt and they know that they're not going to play for the rest of the year, why would you want to give up like $1 million if you know that you're not going to go to another team? But then in that case, if you're the Nets, I would just cut them. Okay, you're not going to agree to a buyout.
Do that, and I suggested doing that with Ben Simmons early in the season, and then he's played okay. So someone else was willing to pick up the buyout and sign him. I'm sure Bogi's a good guy. I'm sure he's a good locker room guy. But if he's not going to play at all, why is he taking up a roster spot when you said we could be playing Killian Hayes? You know, they traded Amari Bailey for Drew Timme. A lot of people like him. He's a big man. They need a big man. Let's see what he looks like. Like, if he sucks, all right, at least we found out. Like, it didn't harm anything. I agree with you. Like, if you're not going to play him and you're afraid to play him because he's either not healthy or you think he's going to win more games than you want, why is he still here?
They have the space. They have about, like I said before, they have about $3 million before they hit like any like penalties and whatnot. It makes no sense to me. Reese Beekman is now like the backup point guard. I would have loved to see another point guard on the court besides Beekman, if I'm being honest.
Can we be real about Reese Beekman? Reese Beekman's absolute upside is Killian Hayes. Like you said, if he pans out and he turns out to be the player that we hope he can be, that's Killian Hayes. So why not just play Killian Hayes? Like, I'm not trying to belittle Reese Beekman. He's in the NBA. But like there's no upside in Reese Beekman. He's a non-scoring point guard who's a little bit small. Like, there's just the absolute best he can be is like a third string point guard in the NBA if everything works out. Like, I've seen enough. I'm good.
I could see him being a second string. I could see that because of his defense. It has to be like a good system that fits him perfectly, though. You know, I get. You know what? It's tough because we're saying, how come you guys are not taking looks at good young other players that that are on other teams? And that's kind of what Beekman is, right? He's a younger player that was on another team, and you actually traded for him, so they had to like him at least a little bit. But I don't know. I'm just not impressed. What do you want to see for the rest of the season?
I don't even know, Pete. Like, on January 17th, we were like, before we won the 5 out of 6, we were 13 and 33. Is that what it was?
Something like that.
Right. And it looked good. And I was confident that we were going to lose games left and right. I said, we got these next 6 games.
By the way, I gotta cut you off. Is this real? I don't think so.
They beat Houston twice. Could they beat Houston twice in a row again? No. But they beat Charlotte twice. Charlotte is tanking. They beat Miami. Miami's in a world of trouble right now. Miami doesn't know if they're coming or going. Like, yeah, if they're playing hard every day and these other teams aren't, they're going to win games, right? What do I expect them to do this last 29 games, 12 and 17? Is that going to be enough? What do they got right now? 19 wins?
Something like that.
I'm going to say they go 31 and 51. Is that enough to be the 10th seed? I don't know. But it's basically what you did last year. And last year, you tried to win all your games. And this year, you tried to lose all your games. And you basically had the same record.
Yeah, they got 19 wins right now.
So,
and it's just so interesting, right? They're 3 games away from the play-in. But then they're also, I think they're 3.5 games away from being like the 5th with the, I guess you could say, like, I don't know. How could I say this with the draft? I guess the 5th lowest team, having the 5th best odds, I guess is the best way to say it. So it's like they're kind of right in the middle that the next like 10 to 15 games could make a real difference in if they're going to draft in the top 4 or they're going to be a playing team. And they still got a couple big teams to play. I think they still got to play OKC once, the Knicks again, but they also have a couple other like shittier teams. And I don't know. I just feel like we picked the direction, and now because we're overachieving, we're kind of muddying the direction. Now there's less clarity because you could see them make a run and make the play-in by some stroke of luck. I could see them drafting 1st overall or being in the 1st round. It's I don't know. I just don't like it. I
can't see him making the playoffs because they'd have to win 2 games. If they got the 10 seed, this team, this roster, which is arguably the worst in basketball, would have to go on the road and win 2 elimination games, right? I can't see him doing that. So I can't see him actually getting into the playoffs. I can see him getting into the play-in, and I would actually, if you asked me to handicap it right now, I would put them making the playoffs as a favorite. I would say that probably happens unless Toronto can catch them. That's the other possibility because I think they're going to pass Chicago and I think they're going to pass Philly, and that makes them the 10 seed. But I couldn't see them like they would have to beat Atlanta and then beat let's say Orlando, both games on the road. That seems like a bridge too far to me.
For the remaining part of the season, I guess I want them to continue playing hard. I want to see guys like Day'Ron get minutes. I don't want to see CT come back, shut him down for the year. I don't want to see CJ again. But I think you made an interesting comment before. You look at a starting lineup of D'Lo, CJ, CT, and Clax, and it's like that's not a bad, starting 4 out of 5. That's not
Especially if you bring
bad.
Clowney back. If Clowney comes back at the 4,
And I even forgot about
really
Clowney.
interesting. Yeah.
Like that's not a bad starting lineup. I would say that's a better starting lineup than most of the teams that are ahead of us in the draft in the tank sweepstakes. So it's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, said in the offseason, if you win a bunch of games because Cam Thomas and Clowney and those guys developed and won you games, you can live with that. If you win a bunch of games because Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith and Schroeder at the time score 30 and you win because of them, you can't have that, right? Like if your young players who you plan on keeping start developing ahead of schedule, okay, like that you live with that. But you can't have these veterans who aren't going to be here winning you games and moving you out of draft position. That's why I really thought Cam and Doe had to be gone. The one veteran I would have kept was Schroeder. And Schroeder won some games early too, so that didn't really work out either. And now you're seeing they won a bunch of games early with Cam Johnson and DFS giving you big production. Then they lost all these games. They lost something like 15 out of 17 or 15 out of 18. But now they're winning again. And one of the big reasons is because D'Lo is creating offense for everyone. It's like, now you're winning again because these veterans who aren't going to be part of the rebuild. It's like, this is not really working out.
If you had to make a prediction right now, what happens for the rest of the year?
So like you're putting a gun to my head right now. How do I see this going? I see them going 31 and 51 and getting the 10th seed and then losing in the first round of the play-in.
For your first, I guess, full episode on the podcast, I got to ask you this. What is your favorite Nets jersey of all time?
All right. So I agree with you, but I got a big 3. Can I give you the big 3?
Sure.
All right. I agree with you. The Stars and Stripes, the Dr. J, the home white. That's number 1. That's not just number 1. That's the best basketball jersey and maybe the best sports jersey ever. That's how high that is. That's 1. But right on its coattail are the 2000 era silver jerseys with the netting down the side and the New Jersey on the front. And then 3, I think, is a sleeper, but it's the gray one. I always say it's the Karis LeVert 50-point game jersey where it's gray and it says BKL. It says Brooklyn up front. Yeah, those are the big 3.
I think you messed up with you got to mention the Coogis and a personal one for me, Brooklyn Blue Knight jerseys. Take off the sleeves.
No,
That's
I like the
classic
Joe Johnson era. Yeah, no, I love those. That look like the Brooklyn Dodgers baseball shirts.
Yeah.
I love those. That was actually 4th on my list. But yeah, I love that one too.
All right, Gary, let's get some promo for you. Where can they find you?
You can find me. My podcast is called BK Nothing But Nets Podcast. We go live the day after every game, or if there's any net news, we go live. We try to go live at least 5 days a week. And then you can find me on Twitter at 3D Boxing Blog. I talk all things Brooklyn Nets as well as boxing on that.
I got a huge announcement to share with you guys. If anyone is interested in extra content or being a part of the show, I've opened up memberships to help it improve the channel. If you want to see any of the perks, you can press the join button, leave a comment. If you enjoyed the episode, consider liking and subscribing. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Have a great night. And let's go Nets.